Good morning, good afternoon, good evening in your current time. I would like to welcome you all to this satellite session, which focuses on innovative model of institutional arrangement to support evidence-informed policymaking and action in 6 WHO regions. I'm Fadi Al-Jordali. I'm the host and facilitator of this session. I'm professor of health policy and systems at the American University of Beirut and a founding director of the Knowledge to Policy K2P Center at EUB, which is really established this K2P mentorship program with the support of Alliance for Health Policy and Systems Research. I would like to welcome the distinguished speakers and panelists who will be participating in different parts of this session. So this session, we have 90 minutes for this session, and we will run it as we will have more of introduction from Dr. Abdul Ghaffar, Director of the Alliance for Health Policy and System Research at WHO, who actually funded this work as part of the BIRD program. Dr. Ghaffar will provide us with the rationale for building engagement to support evidence-informed policy making in the 6 WHO region. I will be actually with a brief overview of the K2P mentorship program. Then we're going to go all mentee institutions, so we're going to have more of a 5 minutes presentation per institution, reflecting on the key insights and lessons learned from the institution who had joined the mentorship program. Then we will actually also, we're pleased to be joined by prominent policymakers and stakeholders from the 6 regions who will be also reflecting on the experience that they have with the mentorship program. We will have certainly some time to get the questions from the audience, and then we'll be wrapping up this session. So I would like certainly to emphasize the importance of that we abide by the allotted time for each of the interventions, and more importantly also for the audience to remind them that they can post their questions in the Q&A box. Now I will the establishment of the BIRD program. Dr. Ghaffar, over to you.
Thank you, Fadi. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. And I'm very excited that we are meeting finally, sadly not face-to-face, which was our original plans, but still we are facing. As Fadi has said, this is like Alliance provided the funding for this BIRD project, which is the Building Institutional Capacity for Systems and Delivery Science. And I'm very pleased and delighted. And I understand when we were thinking to have this project, we're a little nervous. And the rationale to support such a project was that we all know that there's a limited capacity to generate policy relevant knowledge in the low and middle income countries. And obviously that compromises informed policy and the decision making. However, we also know that over the years, especially over the last 20 years, individual capacity to generate policy relevant knowledge has improved to a certain extent. Excuse me. However, institutional capacity to conduct and disseminate policy relevant knowledge, especially to the policymakers, has not really improved. So that was sort of the problem which we were facing, or we still, I think, face to a certain extent. And generally, when we support such projects, we will always, before this project, we will have a northern institution somewhere in the US, UK, or another European or high-income countries to do this mentorship program. And we believe genuinely that it is not an issue of high income or low income, but it's also very important how we communicate, what is the language we use, how much we appreciate each other's roles and responsibility. And we believe, no offense to the people in the high income countries, the leadership in the southern institutions obviously understand the dynamics of the power, politics, and also the capacity is much better than the colleagues who are working in the high income countries, and they're doing a good job, but we wanted to have the same. Then realizing the leadership of Fadi, if I can call not Professor Jardali, but over the years, he has done wonderful work in building the field of health policy and system research, but also doing more and more work on how can we understand better the dynamics within the ministries of health and the power corridor, which is still, I think, very limited knowledge, but he has done very well in his own region, but also globally, some very good studies and some very good model. And like over the last few years, he has been able to develop and lead this K2P Knowledge Center, which is very, very good work in the global health policy and system research community. So luckily, we were able to work with Fadi and all of you, and the design was that, okay, there's a mentor institution, but we want to work with 6 mentee institutions which themselves will mentor the local HPSR community. And when I say HPSR community, it's not the researchers. By design, we wanted to work, engage, and work with the policymakers, because I think there are a lot of publications and it is easy to write publications than to demand and use evidence, because it is very different, like not only the situation and circumstances, but the dynamics. Because I have worked in the Ministry of Health for 10 years at a senior policy position. There are so many demands on the policymakers. So, and then there's a pressures from the donors, pressure from the politicians, pressure from the bureaucratic sources. So information, evidence, knowledge, they want to use it, but they are not very clear mechanism. And the last thing, we all appreciated that use of knowledge is not linear. It is very complex, and people, policymakers appreciate it, but the researchers don't appreciate it, at least at the level where they should be appreciating. So that is the point I was trying to make it. K2P Center, Fadi as a leader, and then all of you working in your own countries have a unique position and reasoning that we decided to work with you. So I'm very happy to inform all of you that we are extremely pleased with the performance of this project. And that is not only the performance of the team at the AUB, but the performance of all the 6 institutions and their leadership. And today is the day where we are going to share our joys and maybe some frustrations, and we would be happy to hear those frustrations, because those are part of the life, especially from our colleagues who has been on the policy side or the research to policy interface. So very exciting. And I think for in the end, there would be some publication. I know there have been some policy products and the documents, but it would be good to capture all the joys and sorrows of this whole process, because how it was designed, why it was designed, how it was rolled out, and how it was implemented, and what is the satisfaction level, not ours, more importantly, the people in the countries, and especially in the policy and the ministries of health. So I'm looking forward to hear all those things. So thank you again for giving me the opportunity to listen to all your important work, and congratulations to everybody. And we remain committed that we'll be looking forward to work with you further, not only to disseminate this work, but maybe how can we take this work further over the years. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Afar. We are definitely pleased. And when you were speaking, I just remembered the old discussion we had early on before this program, and the thinking and many of the ideas that you put at that time in terms of institutionalization and building a mentor institution in region. I think this all goes back to the great idea that you had before, even before we started this program. So I just wanted also to give the credit, but I also mean, the credit for this work, this is still work in progress. We haven't really finalized the whole program. But I have to say that, I mean, the credit goes to the 6 mentee institutions that are becoming now a mentor institutes in their own region for the fantastic work that they have been doing so far. And this is a good experience today to reflect on the progress, the successes being faced, as well as the next step, given that this is still in the making. And certainly that experience, Dr. Ghaffar, in time we will be documenting this, and there will be also a series of publication with the mentee institutions that will come out as well, and the alliance of that experience. So thank you so much for the valuable information. So let me quickly just for the presentation, and I just wanted to maybe very briefly mention to you about the program, particularly for the people that are not aware of the institutional arrangement that we're doing to support evidence-informed policy making. The program. So as you will see, this is a mentorship program, the BIRD program, the Alliance, and this is, the objective of this program is to adopt a multifaceted approach to develop a sustainable capacity for the use of evidence in policymaking with the focus low middle income countries. Certainly, and goes beyond that. The program aims to ensure that the needed skills, processes, and systems and incentives are in place for the production and the use of evidence for decision making. And the program certainly will overcome previously reported constraints in capacity development through its needs-led and customized training and services. It focuses on addressing individual and institutional level capacity, and a strong follow-up mechanism to promote institutionalization of evidence-informed policymaking in the country. So this is really more of we've learned a lot about successes in capacity building, but also in failures and challenges. And we created a program that, in fact, is really, need-based, but also with customized training and services and capacity building. I'm not going to go into the detail, but there's a very, very detailed purpose in terms of developing sustainable capacity, strengthening the capacity of policymakers and researchers, but also establishing and nurturing the critical links and collaboration between research and policymaking institutions to make it much more institutional and scalable. The process for this program is very flexible. So all the mentee institutions have done detailed needs assessment, which we're going to speak about it later on. We work with them to develop a customized plan for action and a customized training and curricula for their sustainable capacity building program, including coaching and mentorship approach. There's a clear articulate outcomes and impact resulting from this in terms of making sure that there's a change in culture within the institution, a requirement and standard operating procedures in terms of how this is being done. It's not the what and the why, but also the how. And this is very important to become integrated in existing institution, and also making sure that there is an increased demand for the use of evidence support that's being provided in terms of taking evidence into policy and practice, and more importantly, how this whole model become institutional, integrated in the day-to-day operation. So these three interlinked phases from a needs assessment, development of customized plan, delivery of customized training curricula and institutional support throughout this process, to post-training, coaching, and mentorship approach. You will see that there was a different level of assessment, but also in terms of capacity, there was really a thorough assessment of at the individual level capacity in terms of skill, competencies, knowledge, attitudes, and motivations. Also at the institutional level, very detailed, thorough process for the assessment and the customization, looking again from the institutional support, standard templates, to the institutional access to programs, to the mechanism and platform to strengthen that relationship, to creating the right incentive, and also to making the culture much more receptive and providing more value for the evidence-informed policymaking. So very detailed process. We've used all those modalities. We're not going to speak a lot about that. We'll hear from the mentee institution, but we really have more of a series of. There was a country visits prior to COVID-19, and hopefully we'll continue. Webinars. We have a detailed access to standard operating procedure templates, materials. We made sure that there's also country learning and exchange, training and workshop program and courses. the support was tailored in terms of providing technical support and was also hands-on learning. This is just a sample of some of the stuff that we've done. Some of them certainly during site visits before the corona, and we continue to do that as well virtually. I wanted to mention that the policy fellowship program that really emerged from this mentorship program, and this is really quite exciting. We're really thrilled by the excitement and the demand and the success of the mentee institution in moving forward with this fellowship program. To the mentee institution now serving as a mentor. So it's more institutionalizing the learning, the new model of partnership to promote researchers, policymaker exchange and engagement. It utilizes immersive method and experiential learning and professional cross-placement that extend beyond the theory to real world practice. So most of the fellows now working on real issues, real priority issues, and they are taking it to their workplace in order to introduce change. And there's also on-site training followed by off-site coaching and mentoring to implement, again, the priority project that we are really working on. Some of the mentees already have finished with cohort 1, some of them already going into cohort 2, and this is quite really exciting. So this is my last slide to the mentee institution. So as you know, we have 6 Curation International Foundation from European region. We have the Caribbean Systems Research Development, Trinidad, Tobago for the region. We have the Health Policy and System Institute of Benin State University, Nigeria. We have the National Institute of Public Health in Cambodia, Muhammad bin Rashid School of Government from the Eastern Mediterranean region, and we have the Center for Management, Faculty of Medicine, University of Gaza from the Southeast Asia region. So what we'll be doing, I will actually stop sharing my slide. I would be inviting Ms. Mia to come in and present about the experience of Curation International Foundation. Mia, over to you.
Dear participants, I'm very happy and pleased to have this opportunity and present today and engage with you. My name is Maya Ochanishvili and I represent Curation International Foundation, European Regional Hub of the Mentorship Program. Let me briefly introduce you to CIF. Our organization has been established in Tbilisi, Georgia in 1994 and is committed to improve health through better functioning health systems. That's why we are so dedicated and proud to be part of this program. More than 25 years of the field experience allowed CIF to emerge as one of the leading think tanks and research organizations in the region. And in addition, we do have very special emotional dependence with the Global Symposium on Health System Research, as we have been hosting the Secretariat for Health Systems Global from 2015 to 2020. Let me now move to the achievement, impact, and even some challenges we faced during the implementation of the mentorship program. Briefly on progress. So we have conducted assessment of our and health policy making institutions in the country and developed capacity building plans. We conducted structured official policy dialogue, finalized several knowledge translation products, and introduced policy fellowship program, and even recruited second cohort of fellows just recently. And we do plan to continue with the capacity building and policy fellowship program and evidence generation. Our own institutional assessment revealed the main strengths, opportunities, and also some gaps and potential threats. The most significant challenge at that time was lack of systems in place to support activities for evidence-informed policymaking. During the assessment, it has been defined as a very close and intensive collaboration with policymaking institutions, but these collaborations were lacking institutional arrangement and systematic approaches. We also assessed the political context and revealed difference in attitudes towards evidence-informed policymaking between 3 health policymaking institutions. We improved our institutional capacity to to develop knowledge translation products in a more systematic way. And now we have a dedicated team who works on evidence to policy issues in two directions: evidence production and capacity building component. We have developed and are delivering strategic policy fellowship program. Through the program and demand-driven evidence generation, we improve linkages between CIF researchers and policy-making institutions. The most impactful achievement of this program for us is the Policy Fellowship Program. Before establishment of this program, short-term capacity building activities in HPSR was very fragmented and rare. Nowadays, people working in the field has information about the possibility and even plan to apply for the next rounds. The next achievement is associated with the fellows themselves, as we are selecting candidates from PMIs, CSOs, academia, and media. This approach improves linkages and creates the collaborative spirit. We are proud to report that we have already finalized one policy brief with our fellow from the first cohort, and even advocacy efforts are already planned. Just recently, we recruited and trained the second cohort of Policy Fellowship Program. CIF believes that this is one of the most important components of the mentorship program, with big potential to be sustainable and impactful, as the topics for evidence generation are prioritized by program participants themselves, which increase their ownership. We observe changes in the attitudes and understanding of the importance of evidence-based decision-making at the policymaking institutions, especially during the COVID-19 outbreak. Our team discovered positive changes in the views of civil society and community-based organizations about the importance of evidence-based policy advocacy as well. CIF conducted policy dialogue on farmer price policy issues, engaging participants from wide stakeholder groups. And the dialogue contributed to a very important series of policy meetings with broad group of stakeholders in the Parliament of Georgia. The policy brief on drug checking, an essential response to emerging harm reduction needs, has been developed and disseminated with local civil society and will be published soon, and advocacy activities are already planned. As the capacity has been developed and evidence to policy team has been defined at CIF, we responded in 2 weeks on the request from PMI on evidence generation for COVID-19 response. So we faced challenges during the implementation of the program. The main challenge at the first stage was related to the lack of understanding of the importance of the evidence. The next implementation challenge was related to the number of fellows in the first cohort, which was hard to manage considering the scope and time needed. We decided to keep the number at maximum 6 to 8 fellows per round. So we are aiming to continue with planned activities, but to conclude, the evidence-based policymaking has no alternatives, and the need of capacity improvement globally and in our region is still facing significant challenges. So the impact of the mentorship program is high, and it potentially will affect individuals and the institutions' overall health policymaking processes around the globe. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you. This is really quite exciting. Thank you so much for sharing this experience. Certainly, we'll hear from all mentees, and then we will have some time for discussion. Let me move to Trinidad and Tobago. Ms. Shelley, can you please come in? Shelley?
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon and good night, depending on your region.
Rasha, you want to share the slide? Rasha? So we'll put this your slide on the screen. Yes, you can see that. Yeah. Yeah, Shelly, you can go
Good morning
ahead.
again, everyone. Good morning again. My name is Shellyan Hunt, and I am the representative from the Caribbean Center for Health Systems Research and Development. And we are the institution that was selected from the region of the Americas to participate in this mentorship program. So we are a relatively new evidence-informed policymaking organization in that we were established in 2018 to pursue a program of work in health policy and systems research to address pressing policy and systems issues faced by decision makers in the Caribbean region. Fortunately for us, we are well positioned to be a nexus between research evidence and decision making in the Caribbean. We also have really good collaborative relationships with the wider Caribbean through the CARICOM, through our Caribbean community, and we have memoranda of understanding with several countries in the Caribbean, including Trinidad, Guyana, and Suriname. Some of the critical changes that we have seen at the center because we participated in this mentorship program includes a defined mechanism for engaging policymakers. We now have institutional guidelines for knowledge translation products. We have institutional guidelines for knowledge uptake activities. We have an established knowledge to policy fellowship program, an established knowledge training workshop, and we have staff trained in evidence-informed policymaking. And this has resulted for us in institutional strengthening at the center because we participated or is participating in this mentorship program. Next slide. All right, so I just want to share a little bit about our policy fellowship program. Our main objective was to promote a culture of evidence-informed policy making and practice makers. And because we attached to a university and academic organization, we also wanted to build the capacity of Caribbean health researchers for evidence-informed policymaking. Our program is quite unique in that we have fellows from different countries. So our first cohort included fellows from Trinidad and Tobago, our second cohort, fellows from Guyana, and our third cohort from the wider Caribbean. And the pictures there just represent some of the fellows that participated in the first cohort of our policy fellowship program. Next slide. So some of the main institutions that we engage would be a greater appreciation and understanding of the role of evidence in decision-making and policy-making. We saw a more defined process for engagement, and this was tested throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. We also saw recognition and commitment to ensure the relevant staff is engaged and trained. And this is quite a big achievement for us. Next slide. So I'm just listing a few of our key outputs or outcomes to date. This list is not exhaustive. We have stronger linkages with policymakers, recognition as a support institution for evidence-informed policymaking. We also have a list of priorities for which evidence is needed to inform decision-making within Trinidad and Tobago. We have an established evidence to policy fellowship program. We have an evidence brief for policy on strengthening human resources in health towards achieving universal health coverage. We have a rapid response brief that has been delivered and presented to policymakers. And we have our evidence-informed policymaking training workshop. And again, this list is not exhaustive, but these are some of our key outputs to date. Next slide. So we thought we would share some challenges, some of our lessons learned and complement of staff. So an adequate number of staff to engage in EIP activities was a big challenge for us. We had some competing activities because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we had other ways we were supporting the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And we also noted the need for continuous engagement of policymakers as priorities can change rapidly. In terms of our lesson learned, we learned very quickly the influence of politics in policymaking. We also learned that change takes time, and sometimes this time cannot be built into a work plan to achieve the expected outcome and outputs. So those were key lessons learned for us. And in terms of our way forward, we are planning to develop a sustainability plan for the continuation of ends. Thank you so much, Fadi.
Dr. Fadi, unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. Apologies for that. Thank you so much, Shelly, and this is really quite exciting. Thanks for sharing that experience. I will actually go now to Dr. Ujoma from Nigeria, from the Health Policy and Systems Institute at the Ebonyi State University. Dr. Ujoma.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm Dr. Ujoma Okedo Alex. I'll be presenting the experiences of the African region of the WHO in providing mentorship support as done by the African Institute for Health Policy and Health Systems. Next slide. The African Institute for Health Policy and Health Systems was established in Ebonyi State University in 2015 and was poised to be a multidisciplinary and intersectoral entity that will support evidence-informed policymaking. And it's also an academic institution with ongoing programs, postgraduate programs, and short-term training programs. This institution is very critical to the development of HPSR and the optic of evidence in Nigeria, because we still have a paucity of use of evidence-informed policymaking in the country with a lot of constraints. Next slide. So as part of the changes we've experienced due to the mentorship program, we've had situation analysis, both of individual and institutional capacity needs assessment, and we've had intensive mapping and engagement of policymakers and stakeholders and other actors, both within Ebonyi State and the wider Nigerian context, and even in Africa. We've also conducted multi-stakeholder engagement events involving several organizations and different stakeholders, all geared towards promoting evidence-informed policymaking. Some of the changes that have occurred to the mentorship program include the development and deployment of a more structured approach to mentorship and trainings. We have a curriculum which the training program has been run, and we've introduced new courses such as evidence-informed legislative policy making, implementation research, and other areas that meet the needs of the mentees of the Institute. There has also been a more receptive culture for health policy and systems research. Next slide. Members in the K2P mentorship program for policy fellows. You can see Professor Fadi over there facilitating a session, and I was part of the mentees that went to Beirut to be part of the training. And this has cascaded down to the institutional mentorship program. We've had 2 cohorts of mentees. The first set came from the National Agency for Control of AIDS, a very important government agency in the country. And the second cohort was made up of mentees from different of the country. There have been several milestones achieved by the mentees, such as their involvement in various policymaking and implementation related activities in their work organizations. They've participated in drafting policies, reviewing them, and the mentees from the NACA, the agency I mentioned earlier, were part of, they applied for the Alliance grants for on donor transition following withdrawal of donor funding. And they have also been involved in conducting policy relevant research. The second cohort of mentees participated in designing and conducting the research, where each of them gave 15 questionnaires to different stakeholders in their different states, 5 states in all. And next slide, please. Some outcomes that we've enjoyed as a result of this mentorship and policy fellowship program include the development of a briefing notes, a KT product on Ebonyi Modified Mutual Health Insurance Scheme. This has been submitted. You can see the cover of that briefing notes there. It has been submitted to the Ebonyi State Health Insurance Agency, EPSHA, and the findings and the policy options are already being implemented. The mentorship program also supported some of the mentees to convene a policy dialogue on the reopening of schools in Ebonyi State. It resulted in a very unique model where the reopening of schools was phased. So we had those going in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening to improve physical distancing. There has been improved knowledge of HPSR and improved attitudes towards evidence demand and use. The mentees have also participated in policy development, review, and implementation, like I earlier mentioned. Next slide. There have also been changes in policymaking institutions, such as development of rapid response evidence centers and data command centers. Some of the institutions have begun to find it important to use evidence, and they've now developed centers for rapid response. Notable among them is the National Assembly. We're working with them to have a center so that the politicians, the parliamentarians, will actually make bills and pass laws based on evidence. There have been promotion of workplace policies, work plans, and our mentees have been able to contextualize national policies to the state level policies. There have been a lot of partnership with other institutions and stakeholders. And it was interesting to note that most of the mentees went home and had step-down trainings for their organizations. There have been other changes like receptive attitudes, and our relationship with these organizations have been strengthened. Then next slide, looking at the challenges and the lessons learned and the way forward. A notable challenge is that there are still capacity constraints to evidence-informed policy making. We don't have domestic funding. Most funding has been from donors. So it's a gap that needs to be filled. Of course, as something that is still new, the government has not invested so much interest, and the researchers still lack capacity. One striking lesson that we have learned is that when engaged, policymakers and parliamentarians are highly interested and willing to be part of promoting evidence-informed policymaking. And it has been built on informal relationships, not just calling them for programs. Well, we have engaged them and we've become friends. Whenever activities are being done by the Institute, they're always willing to support and to be part of what's going on. The way forward to promoting what the mentorship program is already doing would be to continue improving institutional and individual capacity based on the already laid out plans and objectives. And we also aim to intensify policymaker and stakeholder engagement and involvement alongside knowledge translation. Next slide. My presentation will not be over without thanking my mentor and team lead. I'm also a mentee who has a mentor, Professor Jason Leke, for the privilege to represent the team. We also wish to appreciate the K2P team and the Alliance for Health Policy and Health Systems for the continued support on this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ijoma. Thank you so much for the exciting intervention. I'll move now to Dr. Emmanuel from Hamad bin Rashid School of Government in Dubai. Dr. Emmanuel, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. It gives us great pleasure. So the Mohammed bin Rashid School of Government in Dubai is referred to as the first research and teaching institution focused on governance and public policy, where we have one specific field which is dedicated towards health systems research for the Arab region. And we are so delighted to have been part of this program and looking forward to the continued work. Now, since the beginning of the mentorship program, before we started the mentorship program in itself, we actually had some activities and initiatives to support the use of evidence in the policymaking process. However, at the same time, we had some limitations on the capacity as well as building on relationships and when it comes to supporting evidence for the policymaking process in itself. Now, overall, some of these limitations, and just to name just two brief ones, one had to include the receptiveness of policymakers using evidence to inform the policymaking process, as well as limitations when it comes to involving stakeholders during the policymaking process. Next slide, please. Now, some of these changes at the beginning of this mentorship program, the School of Government embarked on improving the relationships with other policy institutions within the context of the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, as well as the Middle East region in itself. Now we have developed also a team, a policy team, an evidence the policy team at the School of Government, entailing an array of researchers, practitioners, as well as academics from the context of the UAE. Furthermore, right away, it gave us this opportunity to focus on how best we can make our curriculums for the master's program, as well as our training programs, applicable and much more applied. So it allowed us to make those changes from our governance structure in itself to have those changes. Next slide, please. Now, within the context of this mentorship program, it allowed us to run the fellowship program. Well, and it's great to see the array of how the fellowship program have been run. Now, we debated back and forth about this, where number of persons and so on. When we realized the number of persons that were actually in need for this capacity building, we decided to do a foundation or a pre-phase, more or less, a phase one, where we did development for research skills, capacity building when it comes to policy making, the importance and alignment of using evidence to informing policy and so on, where it was quite a competitive process where all 42 persons had to submit a brief policy note. And based on this, it was judged. And then we decided on the second phase of the cohort of persons, where we've identified 3 top persons in this particular one. These 3 persons came from, all females, came from one from Jordan, one from Sudan, and then one from the UAE in itself. Now, their projects in itself are still ongoing. We're still finalizing the policy briefs for publications. But at the same time, from phase one, what we did, we also will be coming out with a proceedings document from phase one, which have really identified those key pressing priority health issues as policymakers and researchers face. And we are hoping to, in the next couple of weeks, we'll be launching the 3rd phase, where we will be inviting another 3 to 4 persons to join for the other cohorts. Next slide, please. Now, the positive impact of changes within the policymaking institutions was very dynamic and realistic. You know, taking the case of COVID last year, this mentorship program allowed us to produce a knowledge translation product. Some of the persons I see here on this session now, we have been involved in the dialogue. We worked with the K2P Center on producing this rapid response report on how the UAE has been informing and managing the COVID pandemic, and produced this in April 2020. Now, as of today, there's been over 1,600 reviews of the report in itself and downloads, which throughout in June last year, we were involved in dialogues, direct dialogues with policymakers, persons within the Ministry of Health and Prevention and departments of health within the context of the UAE, as well as in Jordan and in Sudan as well, in terms of working towards using evidence to inform the policy when it came to managing the pandemic in itself. Now, within next slide, please. Within the identification of the top priority issues, we've recognized that 3 top areas, which was one on addressing mental health issues, increasing the use of telehealth mechanisms, as well as overall improving the quality of life. Now, these are our main issues that we as a mentee institution has been focusing on for projects within the context here. Now, as a result, policy practices and the impact in itself really were positive, where policymakers and researchers became much more receptive. And we were able to strengthen relationships with policy institutions as well as research institutions with the countries mentioned earlier. And as of today, since apart from the launch of the mentorship program, we've also had a couple of translation products where we have published a couple of journal articles, policy briefs, reports, and so on, in addition to some new programs. Now, next slide, please. In terms of the challenges, as Professor Fadi had highlighted a couple of years ago, we have some key challenges. Unfortunately, we're still facing those challenges, such as the lack of research products and individuals having the skill sets to do such. So as a mentee institution, we've really learned in the last couple of years, and we really want to thank the K2P Center and the Alliance for giving us this opportunity to be part of this exciting program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manuel. And I see definitely the passion and the significant work that is being done. So it's really we're a little bit almost 4 minutes behind time, so I wanted to make sure that we still have. I'll go to Dr. Shita Dwi from the University of Gajah Mada, Indonesia, for their experience. Of course, Dr. Jorban, so already joined from Cambodia, for their quick presentation before we open the policy makers panel. Dr. Shita.
Thank you, Dr. Fadi.
Yeah.
So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all. My name is Sita Dewi. I'm the Vice Director at the Center for Health Policy and Management here in Indonesia. So I would like to share with you what have the mentorship program affect us. Slide, please.
Rasha, yep.
So we are, thank you. So we are a university-based research center, and traditionally we have established relationship with various directorates at the Ministry of Health, usually in the form of dissemination through discussion and conference and publishing policy brief, press releases, one-on-one advocacy, and from time to time we also conduct research or policy study commissioned by the Ministry of Health. Next slide, please. But we see the need to build the capacity of our young researchers for regeneration purpose. Next, please. So the mentorship program has introduced, next slide, please, Raja. Thank you. So the mentorship program has introduced a more structured approach in the evidence to policy process. And there are a few things that we adopt straight away, because we realize that this will help us to improve the quality of our policy brief. For instance, we involve stakeholders even in the process of developing the policy brief, in contrast to our previous approach where stakeholders are merely the target of policy brief. We're also involving international reviewer and also conducting focused policy dialogue. We have also benefit from the new insights on engaging the media, including social media, something that we have not done before. And also, the program was embedded in one of our division, but now we institutionalize it throughout the other division in our research center. Next slide, please. So the mentorship program has been very helpful, and we have two of our most important impacts for us. One is that we establish a strong presence among the media with regards to the topics that we have for this mentorship program, which is sugar sweetened beverages. And we also have been recognized by the Ministry of Finance for advocating policy options around sugar sweetened beverages. So bearing in mind that we have very little media presence previously, and that our strong presence was among academics and Ministry of Health, but not the Ministry of Finance ministries. Next, please. And our mentorship program has cast awareness to engage fellows from policymakers at district level, academics, and also NGOs. And we specifically targeting the district level policymaker as well as academics and NGOs working in the central and eastern part of Indonesia, as they have more challenges in accessing knowledge building and knowledge translation skills. So our biggest challenge is that our fellowship program started just right after the pandemic broke. So our fellowship program has to be entirely done using online platform. The mentorship program is still ongoing, but we already see preliminary impact, which is that they now also have a structured approach to developing policy brief and communicating it with policymakers, and also new understanding on the importance of evidence in developing problem statement and also developing policy options. And we hope that this will be sustained and that will also help those around them to do the same. Next slide, please. So I don't think I need to echo the lesson learned and challenges from our colleagues from other regions. I think there are, we face exactly same challenges, but let me share some notes on the way forward. So we have institutionalized the evidence to policy process within our research center, and now we are planning to introduce the process to 8 other research institutions in our faculty. And there is also opportunity to incorporate the modules into the postgraduate study in health policy and management here in our university. We also have successfully adapted the mentorship program to evidence to policy training workshop that was conducted to policymakers and academics that are involved in 2 major programs, which is the WHO Indonesia work around maternal health, nutrition and cancer, and also the UNICEF program on water and sanitation in East Nusa Tenggara. We also had been approached by the Global Health Advocacy Incubator that learned about us from the Ministry of Finance, and they're interested to collaborate with us in advocacy of policy around the sugar-sweetened beverages. So next slide. So thank you to the K2P team at the AUB and also to Alliance for the opportunity. We are very thankful to the program that our young researchers now have access to quality learning experience and also gain confidence in presenting evidence to policymakers and laying foundation to making impact in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sita. This is very exciting, and definitely you reminded us that much of the work that you have done at your respective institution, as well other mentee institutions, happened also during one of the most challenging crises that we have seen in recent history. It's COVID-19 pandemic. So certainly this is really important to recognize that despite the challenges of the COVID-19. The good thing that we have seen that many of the mentee institutions have also adapted, changed some of their plan of work, started to work on priorities related to COVID-19 and the rapid response systems, etc. So there was also some adaptation that has happened throughout this challenging time. So thank you so much for the reminder. I would actually move to Dr. Shirvan from the Western Pacific region, the National Institute for Public Health, and this will be the last presentation from the mentee, and then I will go directly to the policymakers to get some reflection with some guided questions. Dr. Shirvan, over to you. 5 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you, Fadi. Good evening from Cambodia. Today I'm going to give you a very short presentation about the use of the K2P to build the capacity at the National Institute of Public Health. Next slide, please. Okay, I just give you a brief background about Cambodia and National Institute of Public Health. We are quite young, established in 1997 and become the academic institution in 2007, and we have 3 main functions. First is the National Reference Laboratory. We are right now responsible for the COVID testing, and I almost missed the meeting today because of the ad hoc meeting. And we have a School of Public Health, and we have a Center for Health Research and Policy Support. This one is the biggest function of the National Institute of Public Health. Next, please. Okay, before going into the role of an IPA, I just show you like what is the policy development look like in Cambodia. It may be quite different from other country because a national program and even our institution could propose our policy to the Ministry of Health, and we only go through the department of legal legislation who look at the legal framework of the policy, like whether this policy should upgrade into law or to sub-degree or circular, something like that. And the real problem is everyone work vertically. So when there is a policy that need to like cross like a multi-sectoral policy or cross-cutting issue, then we face problem because we work alone. So this one that make us think about how could we improve this policy development system. Next slide, please. So you will see that everything is the same, but I just move the role of an IPA a little bit up out of the box. So we become the one that we want to be the one that coordinate also and also provides evidence to different national program or department when they develop their policy, because we have the evidence with us. So we will play a role like the agency that provides advice or scientific evidence to other national program. So how to move ourselves from not related to other institution to become the one that also have some relevance to other institutions is very challenging. So we need to first build our capacity and to get the recognition. So this is how we build our capacity. So when I heard the opportunity offered by Professor Fadi back to 2018, it very much with what we need. So we need to build our policy team. So I name it policy analysis team. Consists of very young scientists, very few of them. And because we have very few people and we have a limited capacity, so we focus on few area of work. And one of the area here I highlight here, like we work on health workforce, community care for diabetes, food, UHC, and health equity and health service delivery. So this is the area that we work on, and we very fortunate that we receive support from K2P. This is the process that we got. We receive training, and also we conduct some practice in conducting policy dialogue and policy brief. We work and hand-on exercise with the like mentor from K2P through face-to-face and also online. Next, please. And here's the outcome. Like so far, we receive training offered by K2P by online, and we luckily we have like one time face-to-face meeting before COVID, and then NIPA have produced our first policy brief ever. Like I saw many institutions that they make like hundreds, but us is the first one. It's very exciting that we produced the first policy brief that follow all the steps that guided by K2P. So now we feel very confident that we know the step. And we also organize one policy dialogue. This is also the first for us also. So it's good that K2P have helped us to at least make the first policy brief and the first policy dialogue. And this first is very hard. To move from nothing to the first one is very challenging for us. In terms for policymaker, right now we organize one first fellowship program also, and we have two young policymaker like may have a potential in the future for her hospital, and we right now one Korean agency is interested in our policy brief. So they want to adopt this policy brief and implement it. And we agree that we will collect more evidence to further support this policy. And the policy brief on diabetes care will be considered by the MOH when they develop the future strategic plan. We have a lot of challenges.
I'm a bit challenged by time. Can you just finish in 30 seconds? I'm sorry, I have to. Yes.
Okay, for our challenge, the problem is in Cambodia, we do not have budget specifically for policy translation, and for policy, people like not very interested right now. Okay, next please. So for the next step, for the lesson learned, we have received support from partner right now to support in our role for policy coordination, and we involved in the policy in health policy development. Next, please. So here's the next step. Next step, we will further build our capacity so we could become a core group to support other institutions, and we plan to organize policy dialogue regularly. So this is our plan. Hopefully we continue to get support on that. And we want to document this lesson learned because it's very valuable for us to document how we start from zero to the first step and move on. I think that is my end of my presentation. And thanks for K2P to make us move this far. Like at least we have some movement on this area. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. Before I move to the policymaker panel, I just want to remind the audience, certainly they can put their questions, any comments in the chat box. So that would be good. We're happy to look at it as well once we have time. I would like now to invite, distinguished 6 panelists to the panel discussion. The panelists represent key policymaker stakeholders that have really taken part in the different activities of the Mentee institution in the 6th region. So we have Dr. Oliver Ossie, a substantial level parliamentarian from Nigeria. We have Dr. Tamar Govanyo, the first deputy minister at the Ministry of Labor and Health, Social Affairs of Georgia. We have Ms. Janice Tyson as the team member at the Director of Health Policy, Research and Planning, the Ministry of Health, Trinidad Tobago. We have Ms. Pei Soklin as Deputy Head of Training and Deputy Nursing Director, Project Coordinator in Cambodia. We have Dr. Mona Hussain as a healthcare professional and a research analyst with a special interest in health policy research from Dubai. And we have Dr. Kasman Makuso as the head of the Health Promotion Community Empowerment at the Parper District Health Office in Indonesia. And what I wanted maybe to have reflection from the panelists now. Now, certainly we have heard from the perspective of the Mentee institution. We have heard from the perspective of research producers, of evidence producers. We would like now to hear the perspective mostly from the users, from the people that actually can consume this type of evidence and actually make change in their community, in their health systems, in public health in general. So I thought maybe to have really a question that where I can go perhaps by order, in the sense of, it would be good for all of us and the audience to hear from you as policymakers and stakeholders, how the engagement with the mentorship program has influenced the work at your institution at the policymaking level when it comes to the use of evidence in policy and action, and how you can really more of a reimagine that relationship between policy-making institution and entities like the Mentee institution to help strengthen the use of evidence in policy-making. So it's a combined question for each one of you, is mostly to reflect on how your engagement with this mentorship program has influenced your level of work at your institution, and how you more of a reimagine the relationship between, again, policy-making institution and research institutions and centers in order to make this institutionalized, integrated into the work and the operation of policy-making institutions. So shall I start by Dr. Oliver? Dr. Oliver, you have 2 minutes. So I'll give 2 minutes for each of the panelists, and then we'll have some questions and discussion. Dr. Arver, 2 minutes, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm very glad to be with you, Prof. Fade. Yeah, for me, it's been an interesting experience to join the Institute, the African Institute for Health Policy in Ebonyi State here. And it has increased my level of understanding and making policy. And you know, they said knowledge is power. With the knowledge I've acquired over the time through the Institute, it has helped me to facilitate some bills that has been a really key help in our own state here. One is the law against quackery in orthodox medical circle, and then one is on the maternal surveillance and health response bill. We have a system in our country where a lot of women that go to give birth, you know, they either end up dying during the child birth process, or the young children that die. So with that knowledge I got from the Institute, I've been able to come up with a bill to ensure that our young women or mothers and children, when they go to deliver, they can deliver safely and they'll be sound and healthy. Now, actually, the Institute has equally helped me to, you know, begin to encourage other legislators to have a buy-in into the idea. And from the Institute, I've been able to facilitate being a session in training those from the national level. You know, in our country here, we have the National Assembly and the State of Assembly. The staffs in the State of Assembly have been participated in a session that trained them, and the other programs line up for the year to help to ensure that the national level buy into the research process. Actually, there are gains when the researchers and policymakers, come together. I got to understand about what is a policy brief because of being in the institution, and I got to know about the focusing event and the policy instrument. You know, policymakers really need to get adequate and well-informed information while in lawmaking process. Without that, you begin to, you know, pass laws that after a year or two, you need to either repeal or reenact and so on and so forth. But when you have adequate information, you are able to pass laws that will stand the test of time, and years to come, that law will be of value to your own country and will help for the growth of the economy and of the country. So in all, I want to say it was a very interesting thing for me to, you know, come to join the Institute. And with that, I've come to have my horizon in health policy and other things have been exciting, expanding day by day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Alabra. It's really quite exciting and energizing, to be honest with you, to hear this from a parliamentarian and somebody that really very much engaged in legislation, which I think we need to do more and more work to also maybe inform many of the legislative processes when it comes to health and social policy. So this is great to hear. I'll actually go to Dr. Tamar Gabunia from Georgia. Dr. Tamar.
Thank you so much. I would like to express my gratitude for this opportunity. Actually, the program in Georgia started back in 2018, and since then we've achieved quite a good outcomes, and we really appreciate the assistance provided by the program, and namely by our partner, Curatio International Foundation, which conducted many trainings and worked with our staff members to build their skills and develop more positive attitudes towards evidence-informed decision-making. Actually, the Ministry of Health in Georgia is quite keen to generate the evidence and to make sure that whatever we decide and our strategies are well informed by the best available evidence, but it's not always possible due to different limitations. And one of those limitations are lack of in-house capacity to generate evidence, to develop policy briefs, and to analyze our policy cycle. That's why this is where this mentorship program came in, and we had the opportunity to train our young staff members, and now they have a very important basic skills for evidence, for generating evidence and supporting like daily work related to health policy analysis and policy development. Key areas we were like assisted by the CIF team were very important and at a high level in our policy agenda, including pharmaceutical policy analysis, as well as primary healthcare reform, the role of telemedicine. So it's very important for us to work closely with the research team at CIF, identify policy questions, as well as to go over available evidence, and then create the process with all partners, including parliamentarians, to discuss the evidence and then to find common solutions. So this was very, very good experience. And at this stage, we think that it's very important to find a sustainable support mechanism for this process to continue. And of course, we hope that the CIF will be able to provide the support next year, and we will see what can be done in the long-term run to maintain this capacity within the ministry and to have better cooperation with the research institutions. And most importantly, it's very important to create the demand for evidence-informed policy making, and that's why we will be working with the parliamentarians and the cabinet to make sure that this is the normal process, and we make it our normal routine. Thank you. Over.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mar. It's a good reminder for us, in fact, to also keep in mind that there is a lot of also capacity building requirements required at the level of ministry level. Many ministries, they actually lack some basic capacity when it comes to accessing evidence, synthesizing evidence, and utilizing it in policy. And that partnership with institution, it's very important, whether research institution, think tanks, and knowledge translation platform, in order to actually bridge that gap and build more sustainable capacity. So thank you so much. I'll actually move now to Ms. Janice Tyson from Trinidad and Tobago. And she's coming also from a Ministry of Health and from the Director of Health Policy Research and Planning. Ms. Janice?
Okay, hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. As far as the ministry is concerned, based on what we have learned through this mentorship program, is that we are seeing a greater appreciation for systematic research and reviews. We're noticing the importance of not just conducting that plain old desktop research, but synthesizing data, which is extremely crucial when reviewing evidence to inform a policy. And an offshoot of that is that we realize that we need to have dedicated staff who can conduct this research and synthesize data. And what we hope is that from this mentorship program, we'll be able to train most of the research persons in our directorate to strengthen our institutional capacity to produce evidence-informed policies and products. As far as the second question with reimagining the relationships between the research and policymaking institutions, previously what there would be is that we realized that there would be a disconnect between the research institutions and the Ministry of Health. So people would be conducting research in silos, people would not be sharing information. So what this mentorship program has done is that it's opened a direct channel between the ministry and our research institutions. So now we are seeing greater collaboration, sharing of data, and in particular, I think this is one thing that COVID has helped, in that we find that the ministry is reaching out more to these research institutions to get that information and that data. What we're also seeing is that what we recognize now is that there's a need for setting a national research agenda. So once the government sets their agenda, it is shared with these research institutions so that we can not have people doing research separate and apart from each other, but both units are working together to build institutional capacity and produce better knowledge products that will eventually impact the health of our citizens. So that's really our, our benefits from the mentorship program thus far.
Thank you, Ms. Janice. I think it's great to hear from the ministry level that, in fact, the COVID-19 reinforced the reality how important it is for policymaking institutions to link with knowledge translation entities and research centers and universities and researchers. And I think, to be honest with you, and I've said it before, maybe one of the best investments that government can do a post-pandemic world, or moving forward beyond the pandemic, is to invest in that strengthening and institutionalizing that relationship, which is extremely important and is proving more important. In fact, we're seeing now many of the countries that have done well in the COVID-19 response are the countries that have engaged very well with research entities, with knowledge translation, initiative, with experts, with epidemiologists, looking at systematic reviews. Those are the countries that actually made much more informed response to thank you for the great reminder related to that.
Yes.
I'll move now to Ms. Pei Soklim. It's interesting now moving from the parliamentary level to ministry level. Now we're moving to the where things happen also at the healthcare organization level, at the hospital level. She's the deputy head of training and deputy nursing director at the National Pediatric Hospital in Cambodia. Ms. Pei, over to you.
Thank you, and greeting from Cambodia. First, I would like to express my gratitude to National Institute of Public Health Cambodia for conducting the fellowship program policy, and also supported by KP2. It was a great opportunity for me to involve in this program, as I have learned a lot from this, that I very young guest and no experience in how to write a policy and how to bring the policy or how to develop the policy or bring the idea or problem to the policy decision making. We have a lot of challenge that we always like sing together, but we don't know how to bring this problem to the one who or the influence person or stakeholder people or stakeholder institute to deal with this. But from the learning process, our fellowship program, I have gained the knowledge how to approach to the policy decision by cooperation with the researcher. Even we are starting at the first beginning, like Professor Chawan have mentioned, but I think should be the first start and move on. I have known that research is very important for the develop the policy or bring the idea to support it or to convince other stakeholder or policy decision to think the same way or to see the same view with us. From this learning, I also have the good collaboration with many relevant stakeholders and many influential persons that we should ask them to join to approach to policy decision. And I have aware that the evidence base is the main point to support the idea in our writing the policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks you for the reflection. So I'll go, if we can go please to Dr. Mona Hussain, also from a more of a research analyst perspective in Dubai. Dr. Mona, over to you.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you so much for including me on this panel. My name is Mona Hussain. I am joining as a stakeholder in two capacities, one as a professional working for over 15 years in clinical practice in various global settings, and secondly, as academics, as a phase 1 delegate of the Policy Fellowship Program at the Mohammed bin Rashid School of Government, and as a graduate student getting my Master's of Science in Global Health Planning and Management at Johns Hopkins University, Bloomberg School of Public Health, Bloomberg School of Public Health. And so just to sort of speak a little bit about the fellowship program at Mohammed bin Rashid School of Government, the important concepts that were sort of highlighted were the importance of priority setting and dissemination of research. And what I really thought was sort of a key element of this program was using research methods and linking them into the bigger picture. And when you did that, you were able to effectively transfer knowledge and disseminate it to stakeholders such as myself and policymakers and researchers. Further to this, in March 2020, as we all know, the WHO declared a global pandemic with COVID-19. And I was part of the Mohammed bin Rashid School of Government Task Force, which created and collaborated with the K2P Center and the WHO, and we created this rapid response report to inform UAE's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The report was focused on three main areas. One was the current UAE health system and the response to COVID-19 as compared to 7 other countries. China, Singapore, Taiwan, Rwanda, USA, Sweden, and Switzerland. The second was a roadmap to action. And the third was reimagining the UAE public health system and preparedness response to strengthen the capacity for effective future global health emergency responses. This report was actually looked at by the Ministry of Health in the UAE and other health-associated disaster preparedness authorities, which actually utilized and used this report to inform disaster relief policies and improve the UAE disaster relief response. And therefore, this illustrated the importance of evidence-based policy research. Now, in response to your second question about the crucial step in reimagining the relationship between research and policy-making institutions, I believe creating opportunities for researchers to use analytic, lateral, and critical thinking to translate and transfer evidence-based knowledge to inform policy is really the key area here. Yeah. And this idea that we reflected upon in our policy fellowship was this practitioner researcher. And I think this element really needs to be emphasized as we take knowledge and we translate it to inform policy.
Yes.
Yeah, so I really think that's an important element to look at to strengthen capacity in the future.
And thank you for also, emphasizing as well that we're talking about capacity. We're talking not only capacity at the level of policymakers and stakeholder organizations, but also capacity at the level of researchers and research institutions. So this is certainly very important. I'm a bit worried. We still have only 10 minutes, and we need to make sure that we. So I'll go directly, if we can have 1 or 2 minutes maximum, Dr. Kasman from Indonesia. So it's interesting, more coming from the district health office, the health promotion, community empowerment. Dr. Kasman, can you give 1 or 2 minutes maximum?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fadi.
Yeah.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Somebody can mute.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Yeah. Good.
Yes. Halo. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for everyone. I'm Kasman. I'm policymaker from District Health Office in Parepare City in Indonesia. Mr. Fadi, this mentorship program has given me benefit very much to me, especially to district government, this assessment at the health office, especially in using evidence. And this program has provided us with a better understanding of the role of evidence in policy, policy formulation, and making using relevant database for different policy offerings. And this program gives us, especially my district health office, the ability to make public policy document in a different context and be able to present evidence-based policy that we offer to all stakeholders, executive, legislative, or media. And no, we hope that this activity will be sustainable in giving us support in making evidence-based policy for the better health, especially for district government in Indonesia. And we hope that Gajah Mada University and American University of Beirut, especially K2P Center, will include us in very activity to be able to improve our skill and capacity and be able to take part in the activity directly. And we hope that we are able to provide understanding to our college in government, especially in district government Parepare, to make better public policy. Thank you very much to American University of Beirut and UGM, Mr. Sita and team, and very happy to join this program and this morning in health service research in symposium. Thank you, Mr. Fadi.
Thank you, Dr. Kasman, and thanks to all the facts for the. I think all of you almost reflected on the importance. Not the activities has been useful in your own work context, policy, also that some of the outcome and impact that's starting to be real. All of you are really also emphasizing how important to keep scaling up that work, more of sustaining that work, and making sure this become more as we move forward, particularly with the relationship between the mentees or the mentor institutes and the stakeholder organizations. So thank you so much for the review. I know that we still don't have much time, but I am looking at the chat box, and certainly, participants can link with us and the mentee institution even after the session. At some of the question related to how, to what extent the mechanism that has been used in this mentorship program they will be available. There will be some publication coming out, but feel free also to connect with the mentee institution and with K2P as well for further information in terms of the modalities that has been used as well and the tools. Also, a question about how others can be benefiting from the policy fellowship program. Certainly now each of the mentee institutions, they have a call in terms of new cohorts. Some of them already have put it, some of them they're already planning to do so, but certainly, but depending which region you come from, now there is really an institution that you can link with also to get to know more about the fellowship program, how the result of the health system research can be translated to health policies. I think you will also, with the experience of the mentee institution and different entities, and there's a really wider and larger group that are really working on that. There's a lot of things that can be shared at this stage of how some of the modalities have been used in terms of realizing impact in policy based on knowledge translation and the use of evidence. I wanted to take the opportunity, before time is over, to really thank our distinguished speakers, the panelists, the audience. I think this is quite insightful and rich in terms of information that has been shared today. And this is really coming at a critical time, I would say, in history, as I mentioned, as health systems mostly across the world are being challenged and under pressure because of the COVID-19 pandemic. I think throughout this session, certainly, we have been all exposed to some of the innovative models of engagement and collaboration, and also institutional arrangement that has been used by different mentee institutions to strengthen the institutional capacity and also institutionalize the use of evidence in decision-making in governmental as well as other stakeholder organization level up until the level of community and healthcare facilities. We certainly hope that the insights and learning can spark action, reimagining that relationship between research and policy, between researchers and policymaking institutions for better and stronger health. I want to mention that, in fact, what we have learned so far from this mentorship work, that there is really a call for countries, for governments, for science communities, for funders, for donors, to start really investing in the efforts to institutionalize the relationship between platform, initiatives, knowledge translation institutions, research institutions in different regions, through securing adequate resources, capacity building in the use of evidence in policy, through education, and also more importantly, to promoting the integration. And this is very important. This is what we're focusing on, promoting the integration and the institutionalization within the policy-making processes. How all this work that's being done can become part and parcel of the policy-making level. How we can make this much more certainly systematic is part of the day-to-day operation of how we develop policy. We're going there. We are in our way to get there. Certainly, more efforts, efforts and support and resources are required to get into that direction. And I think the mentee institution is an excellent example of how many institutions are really doing the hard work, are doing the heavy lifting to get into that direction, and we're starting to see the seeds of success. At the K2P Center, we definitely remain committed to our role as a global mentor institute when it comes to supporting institutions like the respective institution we're working with. And certainly we continue and look forward to continue that journey with the existing mentee institution and with the future institutions in order to make evidence much more accessible, to make evidence to policy become an integral and institutionalized process in the policy making processes and in countries. I would like, maybe to end, Dr. Ghaffar, I don't know if you want to mention any final reflection, because I want to thank, the Alliance for Health Policy and System Research, This has the design of this mentorship program taken us a lot of time, but this has been really was done in support and with support of the Alliance for Health Policy and Systems Research. It was challenging to actually get this whole concept together, but we're really happy that really we are in the middle of it, and countries and regions are moving forward with this. So great work by the Alliance for pushing this agenda forward. Dr. Ghaffar, do you want to say any final comment before we finish this session?
Just one word. Thank you very much to you and to each policymaker and the Mentor Institute leaderships. So very happy, very proud, and I think we should all be very proud and looking forward to work with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much for all the participation. Thanks for the audience. We're actually we ran out of time, so we have to finish this session now. Thank you so much. Thanks for all the speakers, the Mentee Institution. I would like to thank the K2P team, the big K2P family that are really working very hard. Each of the Mentee Institution is already grouped with the leads from the K2P, and thanks to all of them for the fantastic work that they are doing in supporting institutions. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, thank you.